In this series, and exclusive to this channel, I'll be taking you through the evidence in full that Lucy Letby gave to the court during her 10 days on the witness stand. The purpose behind this series is to give you, the viewer, a full and factual understanding of the evidence presented to Lucy Letby during her original trial. What you'll hear next is Lucy Letby's cross-examination in court. This took place at Manchester Crown Court and was conducted by Nicholas Johnson, KC. First of all, have you had an opportunity to read your notes? Yes. Do they mention blood in the nappy? No. I'm going to suggest to you that when you said just before the break that you'd put it in your nursing notes, you knew that wasn't true. No, I couldn't recall my notes specifically at that time. We'll come to those notes in a moment, when we compare what you've put in the notes with other sources of information. But I want to deal, as I have done in many other cases, with other people's descriptions of what they saw, so that we can understand whether you agree or disagree that what they are describing is a true reflection of the presentation of this child. Okay. So starting with Dr. Harkness, who gave evidence on the 17th of November last year. If anyone wants to check the references, they are between pages 38 and 41. So what I'm going to do is to read to you what these witnesses said about the discoloration that they saw. Do you understand? Yes. So this is Dr. Harkness. So this was a strange pattern over the tummy area, over the abdomen, which didn't fit with the poor perfusion. In between the kind of chest, upper legs, the rest was still pink, but there were these kind of strange purple patches that appeared over the outside of his tummy. Is that accurate or not? No, I don't agree that it was patches. It was purple, but it wasn't patches. From what I remember, there were patches in one area, then there were patches in the other. Some of it was still nice and pink, but it certainly was unusual and not fitting with a baby that had completely shut down with its or poor perfusion. Would you say the same as you said before? Yes. This was kind of a purpley blue colour. Do you agree with that? It was purpley blue, yes. So this was different in colour and different in pattern to what you would see from a perfusion perspective. Do you agree with that? I don't think I can comment on that. His head was pink, his upper legs, upper arms, chest was pink. Is that accurate? I remember him to be more pale than pink. The abdomen was purple, so patches, so not one solid purple area. I'd say one purple patch to the bottom, one purple patch to the top, some in between. Would you agree with that? No, I disagree. I can't remember exactly where they were. I'd seen this in child A, and that's the only other time prior to this that I had seen it. Do you agree with that? No. The point I'm really looking for is, are you agreeing that, however you describe it, what you had seen on child E was the same as what you had seen on child A? No, it was not the same. What were the differences, so we understand? With child E, it was like a solid block of purpleness over his abdomen. Child A had pale and whiteness and more of like a mottled look. He was then asked, have you seen it since? And the doctor responded, not outside of the babies in this case, no. They were different sizes. They weren't small dots, they would have been relative to the size of the baby. They were in the region of 1 to 2 centimetre patches, possibly bigger, but I wouldn't say smaller than that. And do you agree with that? No. He then continued. The areas were over the abdomen, so not up the chest, not below his groin, just in the middle section. Do you agree with that? Yes, I agree with that, yes. From what I remember, it did change where they were. They were purple in one area, and then they were purple in another. No, I don't agree with that. Do you remember that Dr. C said that she didn't see discoloration first of all? Yes. But do you remember that when she arrived to help, Dr. Harkness had described to her what he had seen? Do you remember that? Yes. Were you there when Dr. Harkness described to Dr. C what he had seen? Not from my memory, no. Just so that I understand, because we have had misunderstandings before, are you saying that there was no description by Dr. Harkness to Dr. C? Or simply that you don't know whether he did describe it or didn't? I was not there for any conversation between the two of them. Okay. I'd like to go to your nursing notes, which do deal with this and do deal with other issues as well. And rather than going back to ask you about specific parts, I'm going to ask you to read through what's in the notes. Can you see the typescript? Yes. Could you read us through your nursing note that was created at 0431 and completed at 0451? Written in retrospect for care given from 2000, emergency equipment checked, fluids calculated. Child E nursed in an incubator with humidity. IV fluids, babeven and lipid via long line, 0.2 ml per kilogram per hour of insulin via long line. Prior to 2100 feed, 16 ml mucky, slightly bile-stained aspirate obtained and discarded. Abdomen soft and non-distended. SHO informed to omit feed. At 2200, large vomit of fresh blood, 14 ml fresh blood aspirate obtained from NG tube. Reg Harkness attended. Blood gas satisfactory. Blood sugar 10.7 millimoles. Metronidazole and IV ranitidine commenced and given. 10 ml per kilogram of 0.9% sodium chloride bolus given. Mean BP and observation stable. Child E handling well and active. NG tube on free drainage. Further 13 ml obtained by 2300. I think it says 13 ml blood obtained, doesn't it? 13 ml blood too. Yes. Is that not what I said? Sorry, I apologise. I don't think you did, but I apologise. Further 13 ml of blood obtained by 2300, beginning to desaturate and perfusion poor. Oxygen given via neopuff, initially in 24% incubator oxygen. Toes becoming white and child E called to touch. Reg Harkness present throughout. Child E began to decline. At 2340 became bradycardic. Purple band of discoloration over abdomen, perfusion poor. CRT 3 seconds. Emergency intubation successful and placed on ventilator, see medical notes. Required 100% oxygen, saturations 80%. SIMV 22/5, rate 60. Further saline bolus and morphine bolus given. Second peripheral line cited and used to administer drugs. Dr. C arrived. At 0036, acute deterioration. Resus commenced as documented. ×5 adrenaline, ×2 sodium bicarbonate, ×1 glucose bolus, ×1 sodium chloride bolus, ×1 20 ml per kilogram O-negative blood. At 0101, chest compressions no longer required. Further decline and resus recommenced at 0115 and discontinued at 0123 when child E was given to parents. Child E was actively bleeding ++ from mouth and nose throughout the resus. 6 ml of blood was obtained from NG tube. Child E passed away at 0140 in parents' arms. Now, for the sake of completeness, there is a further note that you made at 0451 through to 0458. Is that right? We see that underneath? It's 0537 on there. Do you see family communication, the bottom of the page? Sorry, I thought you were talking about the addendum. I'll come to that in a second. But just before we get to that, all that information that you produced in the first note, time between 0431 and 0451, is that all carried in your head? No, it would have been written with reference to charts and any notes that have been made or medical notes. Had you, other than the material that's in the fluid balance chart or the vital signs chart, had you written anything down contemporaneously at the time things were happening? That would be my usual practice, yes. What had you written down at the time things were happening? Well, I can't recall specifically now what I've wrote down. Right. Well, it may be that we're at cross purposes. I just want to clarify this. If you could go to divider 5, which you have in front of you, we have what I've called the vital signs chart. It's the observations chart, isn't it? Yes. So this is one source of contemporaneous information to you. Is that right? Yes. So looking at the second page, which is page 2685, we see that there are 4 columns which bear your initials. Yes. And that is material you were writing down at or about the time. Is that right? Yes. Over the page again, we've got blood gas at page 2715, which has 2 entries, 2221 on the 3rd and 0105 on the 4th. Yes. We then have the fluid balance chart at page 2717, 2718, 2719 and 2720. Other than that material, was there any other notes that you were making at the time that would have gone into or been incorporated into the nursing notes? Yes, so the usual practice is when things are ongoing, we write on the back of the handover sheet or any piece of paper that's around at the time. Right. In your nursing notes, you describe the discoloration as a purple band of discoloration. Yes, don't you? Yes. Do you remember in your police interview, and we can go to it if you'd prefer, do you describe it as becoming a patch of sort of purpleness? Do you remember saying that? No, but I accept that if that's what that says. Well, I don't want you to simply agree with me. If you go to your interviews, please, it's in the interview bundle 1, the child E1. It's the second reply of yours at the top of the page, which runs to 4 lines. Yes. I noticed his abdomen was becoming fuller and rounder, and later into the evening there was a discoloration area to part of his abdomen, like a purple discoloration. Yes. And over the page on page 8, what I described to you just before. I noticed there was becoming a discoloration to his abdomen, but I can't say exactly where, but there was becoming a patch of sort of purpleness. Yes. And I think you gave further detail, didn't you, at the top of the next page, saying at the top of the page, it was towards the right side by his umbilicus, but I can't remember the extent or size at the moment. Yes. So at that stage, you were struggling to describe how big this patch was. Is that fair? Yes. On Friday the 5th of May, in answer to questions from your counsel, you described it as there was a red sort of horizontal banding. Yes. Across his abdomen. Yes. Just across where his umbilical cord was, just around that area. Yes. And you were then asked, was it spreading anywhere else? And you said, no, it was just on the abdomen. Yes. Do you remember that? Yes. So does it come to this? That to a limited degree, you and Dr. Hartness agree in that it wasn't in the chest, it wasn't below the groin, it was across the abdomen. I agreed it was on the abdomen, yes. I did not agree it was in patches. I'd like to concentrate, if we can please, on the paper charts because they're slightly easier to manipulate. I'd like to go to the final page behind divider 5, please. Yes. If we look along the bottom of the chart, we can see that towards the right-hand quarter or so, there are 3 columns bearing your initials. Yes. One which separates 2 sets of your initials, which are Belinda Simcox initials. Yes. Albeit some of the writing in that column is your writing, as I understood your evidence. Yes. So the 15 ml fresh blood, for example, you told us was your writing, not Belinda Simcox writing? Yes. I'll come to that in a moment. Can we just look at the aspirates line, please, which if we count up from the signature line is 5 lines above the signature line. Have you got that there? Yes. Do we see there were minimal aspirates in effect in the hours preceding Child E's collapse? Yes, that's right, yes. Would you agree that that is indicative of there being no gastrointestinal issue? Yes. The first hint of any gastrointestinal issue is your handwritten note in the 2100 hours column, isn't it? Yes. That's the 16 ml mucky? Yes. That's your writing? Yes. The omitted above it is your writing? Yes. As is the data above the word omitted? Yes. In the 2200 hours column, however, there is some of Belinda Simcox writing. Yes. Why? I can't recall that right now. It's not unusual for nurses to carry out observations and readings for other people. Well, it isn't. But you apparently were there because you have written into that column 15 ml fresh blood. Yes, I'm assuming that blood came after Belinda's documentation here. Why do you make that assumption? Because Belinda would have carried out those readings at 2200 and it's my writing that says fresh blood, so I assume it's happened after Belinda carried out those readings. But why was Belinda there at all? I can't say for sure. Well, isn't it because you had drawn her attention to something? Yes, she did come to review the aspirate, yes, and she also assisted me with looking after child F. Which aspirate are you talking about? The 16 ml. That was an hour earlier, wasn't it? Yes. Yes. So what I'm asking you is why she was there at all. I can't answer that. If we go back to your nursing notes, which we've just handed out to the jury, we have the answer, don't we? If you count up the first page, count up 4 lines. Yes, 2200. What does it say? Large vomit of fresh blood. Yes, that's why Belinda was there, isn't it? No, I can't say why Belinda was there carrying out those observations at that time. 14 ml fresh blood aspirate obtained from NG tube. Yes. Did that just appear, or did it build up over a period of time? No, I believe that came into the free drainage pot. Yes, but over what period of time is the question? I can't be specific. Can't or won't? No, can't. You had injured child E, hadn't you? No. And that's why he was bleeding. No. Why isn't there a reference on the paper chart to the vomit that you have recorded in the nursing notes? That's an error on my part. Well, it may be. But why? I can't explain that. Sometimes we don't document everything as accurately as we need to. Or is it in the excitement of sabotaging child E, you overlooked it? No. What does line 59 tell us, Lucy Letby? That at 2200, Belinda gave a feed to JE. A feed isn't the work of 30 seconds, is it? I can't comment on that without knowing what the volume of feed was. So Belinda Williamson was feeding a child in nursery 2 at 2200 hours, wasn't she? Yes, approximately, yes. According to the paperwork, yes. So my question, which I'm afraid is a repeat of the question I asked you earlier, is why were you asking her to do observations on child E? I don't recall asking her to do that, so I can't answer that. Well, she was certainly busy at 2200 hours, wasn't she? Apparently. Yes, there were also other staff with her baby as well, yes. Was it so that at the time of his collapse, you had somebody else's writing and signature on the paperwork? No. Like Caroline Oakley with child D. Did you get her to write in information that you had derived onto a chart? No, that wouldn't happen. She has read those drip readings for himself. That's not something that I could have relayed to her. Well, do you remember Caroline Oakley saying that the girls had told her information that she then wrote onto child D's chart? Yes, but that wasn't specific values. That was regarding what she had suctioned. It wasn't the specific values of the drip reading. That's what you do, though, isn't it? You get other people to write things in on charts to cover up what you were doing. No, that's not correct. I'm going to ask you about some of the things that the mother of child E and F said to see whether you accept them. First of all, she said that her husband left her with child E having skin to skin at about 5 p.m, 1700 hours on the 3rd of August. Do you accept that? I wasn't there, so I can't comment. Do you accept that that skin to skin ended at 1830? Again, I wasn't there, so I couldn't comment. Do you know who it was that rang the mother of child E and F? When are we talking? When child E collapsed? No, I believe somebody contacted the midwifery staff rather than the mother of child E and F directly. Yes, of course, you're right. But at whose behest would that have been done? I don't know what that means, sorry. Who would have asked somebody to ring the midwifery staff? It would have been a collective decision. Once child E started to deteriorate, our first priority would have been to contact mum. Do you accept that the mother of child E and F made a phone call at 21:11? I accept she made a phone call, yes. Do you accept what she and her husband said was said in that call? No. That she was very upset. You don't accept that? No. Both she and her husband said that. You do not accept it? No. She told her husband that child E was bleeding from his mouth. You don't accept that? No. She'd been told there was nothing to worry about and to go back to the ward. You don't accept that? No. Do you accept that just before the final of child E's collapses, Dr. C and Dr. Harkness went to the computer to review the x-rays? I can't recall that from my memory, no. You may say you can't recall it, but it was the evidence of Dr. C. Okay, I don't have the benefit of being able to see that evidence right now. It's hard to remember who has said what over the course of the trial. Right. But that was the moment, according to Dr. C, of child E's final collapse. Do you remember that at about 00:25? I can't remember where Dr. C was. No. Where is the computer in nursery 1? Behind the partition wall? Yes, the same point at which Mel Taylor was when child A collapsed. Yes, out of view of where child A and child E were. No, I don't agree. It was in view of child A. It wasn't for child E, but it was in view of child A. Well, Mel Taylor didn't agree, did she? No. You killed child E, didn't you? No. You injected him with air. No. Just as you had done with the other babies before. No. Why in the aftermath were you so obsessed with the mother of child E and F? I don't believe I was obsessed with the mother of child E and F. Can you tell us why you were searching for her continually? I often thought of child E and F. And on that subject, can we go to the child F interviews, please, at page 23? It's the third interview. Which folder is that, sorry? It's the interviews folder 1, please. You see there you were asked in effect the same question, weren't you, that I've just asked you in a slightly different way at the top of the page. Yes. You were asked, you searched for the mother of child E and F 9 times and the father of child E and F once from August to December. Yes. And 2 in January. You were asked why, and you said, to see how child F was doing. Yes. The first of those searches, if we go to the child E sequence of events, please, is tile 273. Do you see that? Yes. Where was child F on Thursday the 6th of August at 1958? He was on the neonatal unit. Yes. So was what you said to the police and to the jury true? That you were looking to see how child F was? Collectively, yes, this is one search. I agree this one is not, but the others were after child F left, yes. All right, deal with this one then, one of the 10. Why were you searching for the mother of child E and F on Thursday the 6th of August at 1958? She was on my mind, and when I think of people, I often search for them. You were looking to see what reaction you had got from this grieving family, weren't you? No. Just as you were on Christmas Day? No. Of all days. Tile 306, please. Didn't you have anything better to do at 23:26 on Christmas Day than to search for the mother of child E and F? No, I often thought of child E and F. Because you had killed one and tried to kill the other, hadn't you? No, because I always thought the mother of child E and F and I had a good relationship. She's not the sort of person that would make things up about you, is she? I can't answer that. That's for her to answer. Let's move on to child G, please. I'll come back to child F later because I'm going to deal with him with child L because they are the insulin cases. So this is the one occasion where I'm going to go out of sequence, okay? Do you understand? Yes. We'll leave child F until later, until we get to child L and M, but he's not forgotten. We would deal with child G. You will remember, I'm sure, that there are 3 allegations against you in relation to child G. Yes. Count 7, which is the projectile vomit on the 7th of September 2015. Yes. Which coincides with her 100th day of life. Yes. And then counts 8 and 9, which were both the 21st of September 2015, which coincides with what would have been child G's due date had she gone full term. Okay, I'm not aware that that was the date, but yes. Well, what are you not aware of? That was child G's due date. Is that the first time you've ever heard that information? Well, I can't recall. I don't recall knowing that that date specifically was her due date. No. You just think about that. Are you really saying that the first time you have become aware that the 21st of September was child G's due date is when I have just told you? No, I'm saying that that date does not stand out as being child G's due date. Right. It's the date of the events, not, in my mind, child G's due date. Did it stand out to you as being Child G's due dates at the time? Not that I recall, no. Can we go to Child G2, please? It's the sequence tile 106. Can you read that out, please? Due date today. You'd really forgotten that? Not at the time, no. Right here and now, yes. Or is the reason you are avoiding it, as I suggest, because of the coincidence between the events that they coincide with day 100 of life and Child G's due date? No, that's all it is, a coincidence. In evidence to your counsel, you said, she was a very premature baby that we do not often care for at the Countess of Chester Hospital. Yes. Do you remember saying that? Yes. By the time Child G got to the Countess of Chester Hospital, she was well within the normal, in inverted commas, parameters of babies cared for at the Countess of Chester, wasn't she? Yes. So why did you say that she was very premature and you don't often care for babies like that? Because a baby born that extreme prematurity comes with a number of additional health issues that a prem baby that has been born, say, at more than 27 weeks wouldn't necessarily have. They require a different level of care. But by the time she arrived at Chester, Child G was fine though, wasn't she? No, I don't agree that she was fine. No, she had a number of ongoing issues. We'll come to it. Can we start with your defence statement, please? If you'd like to put the interviews away just to reduce the clutter. Paragraph 85 is the beginning of your defence statement for Child G. Do you agree? Yes. And at 85 you say, I did nothing to hurt Child G. Yes. Many of the children we care for had health problems. Child G had complex needs. Concerns were raised on the unit as to her movements between different units and whether our unit could properly care for her. Yes. Child G was due to go home by the time she had the incident on September 7th, wasn't she? No, I don't agree that she was ready for home, no. Well, do you remember which nursery she was in? She was in nursery 4. Yes, and which babies are put into nursery 4? Special care babies. Yes, and which is the nursery you go into when you're about to go home? Nursery 4, but you could be in that nursery for a period of months. It doesn't mean that you're imminently about to go home. She was being still nasogastric tube fed. Are you exaggerating Child G's problems? No. You have raised the issue of there being problems. Which are the particular issues that you say Child G faced which made her exceptional as at September 7th, 2015? Collectively, she had had a lot of ongoing issues that came from being born so extremely premature. Give us a selection of these ongoing. They often have difficulties with feeding. I know Child G had had many blood transfusions. She'd had previous sepsis. She'd had problems with her lungs. But as at September 2015, what were Child G's problems that you say made her unusual? I'm not saying that she was unusual, but a baby like that needs a certain level of care and observation that another baby might not. Well, she was getting a nursery nurse in nursery 4. Are you saying by that point? Yes. I'm not saying at that point. I'm saying earlier on. Well, it must be my fault then. I must not have made myself clear. I will now try to make myself clear. What are you saying were Child G's unusual problems as at the date she first collapsed? In other words, as at September 7th, 2015. When she had the vomit? Yes. She was a baby that was on oxygen and she'd had feeding issues. When had she had these issues? Throughout her life? No. Please don't try to deflect the question. The question is, as at September 7th, what were the particular unusual problems that Child G had? I can't answer that. Well, perhaps we can just start by looking at the charts that we've all got in paper form behind Divider 7, and you can give us chapter and verse on what you say are these problems. If we look at the first page, we've got the position as at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th of September. Yes. So days 95, 96, 97 and 98 of Child G's life. Yes. Is there anything unusual about that picture? No. Turn over the page, we get to day 99, which is the 6th of September. Anything unusual on the 6th of September? No. The problems started when she projectile vomited, don't they? Yes. Yes. Turn over to page 6962, please. That deals with events after the projectile vomit, doesn't it? Yes. So on again, please, page 6971. In about the bottom third of the page, we've got half a dozen lines dealing with the 1st to the 7th of September. Is that right? Yes. The very final line is a blood gas at 0426, which is after the projectile vomit. Yes. Which bears your signature? Yes. But so far as the other 5 lines are concerned, dealing with September, is there anything untoward about any of that? No. It looks from that, doesn't it, that child G was off oxygen on September 5th. From this, yes, I'd have to look at the observation chart to confirm that, but yes, I know she was back on it on the 7th. Of course she was, because by that stage she had brain damage, didn't she? No, I don't agree. She'd been on oxygen on the observation chart we've just looked at. Well, if I in any way have misled people, you help us. She hadn't been off oxygen at all. She's remained on oxygen on these charts at all times. At the beginning, is that what you're saying? From this date of the 2nd, she at no point has been off oxygen. If we look at page 6959, yes, we see child G's saturations. Yes. Then we see O2, don't we? Yes. So we see SaO2, which is saturations. Yes. That's a reading taken off the probe. Is that right? Yes. Then we see O2, which is the fractional oxygen that's been administered to the child. Is that right? Yes. We see that that line begins at 30. Yes. On the 2nd of September at 2300 hours. It runs across and it says 0.05 or other similar types of figures further on. Yes. What do they tell us? At this point, child G has been put onto nasal prong oxygen, so it's prongs that go up the nose, and that's the percentage, well, the fraction of units of oxygen that she's receiving. How much oxygen does that actually equate to? I don't know what it means in percentage terms. Is that what you're asking? Yes. I couldn't say. I don't know. All right, we won't get hung up on that. Can we go to the feeding charts, please, which are at the end of this section? It's pages 7012 and 7013. Can we start with 7012? Are you on that page? Yes. Do we see in the top half of the page data for September 5th? Yes. And we see that child G was being given expressed breast milk with Gaviscon and Fortifier. Yes. We see the amount? Yes. 44 to 45 ml every 3 hours. Yes. And we see the route by which it was delivered. Yes. Either NGT or B for bottle. Is that right? Yes. Would you agree that all the signs on the 5th are good? Yes. On the 6th, which is in the bottom half of the page, again, similar data? Yes. And again, would you agree that all the signs are good? Yes. And in particular, at 2300 hours, we see your friend Nurse E's signature. Yes. We see that child G was given a bottle at 2300. Yes. And to feed a 45 ml bottle to a baby of child G's age, how long would that take, approximately? For a baby on oxygen, maybe up to half an hour? Yes. It's not the sort of thing you do twice by mistake. No, I don't think I've ever suggested that. I'm not saying you have suggested it. I'm just checking that you agree that it's not the sort of thing that happens twice by mistake. No. No. So by the time we get over the page, 7013, to the feed at 0200 hours, we see that we have the feed that immediately preceded the vomit. Yes. Just looking at all that data together, do you agree that so far as feeding was concerned, the picture shown by the data is a good one? Yes. Do you also agree that child G's observations immediately preceding her collapse at 0200 hours on the 7th are good? Yes. We heard as much, didn't we, from child G's father, from Dr. Ventress, and from your friend Nurse E? Yes. Yes. And you do not dispute that? No. And you knew, didn't you, that this was day 100 of child G's life? Yes. It was a big deal. Yes. If we look at tile 276, please, at the start of the night, such a big deal was it that you'd all been sitting at the nursing desk making a banner for child G to celebrate. That's what we do for babies of 100 days, yes. It's a big milestone, yes. Particularly for one who, as you've already told us, was born at the margins of viability. Absolutely, yes. A very big deal indeed. Yes, yes. Well, I'm going to move on to the population distribution, which I can certainly deal with before the break. Can we go to tile 47, please, in child G1? If we scroll down, please. Here we see, starting with child G, she is the object of this allegation. She was in nursery 2 with your friend Nurse E. Yes. The nursery nurse, Lisa Walker, had 2 children in nursery 3. Yes. You had 1 child in nursery 1. Yes. IH. And Elsa Simpson had another AC. Yes. And there were 2 other children whose location cannot be confirmed. One was with Christopher Booth, DB. Yes. The other, CC, was under the charge of your friend Nurse E. Yes. Any issue with staffing levels on this particular shift? Not from what I can see there, no. Are you suggesting that medical or nursing incompetence in any way has contributed to child G's projectile vomiting on September 7th? No. Are you suggesting that in relation to the treatment of child G, up to the point at which she projectile vomited on September 7th, anybody, medical or nursing, made a mistake? Potentially nursing, yes, but I'm not saying that did happen. What's the potential problem that you have identified? That child G received more than the 45 ml at 2 a.m. So your friend Nurse E may have overfed child G. Is that what you're saying? That's a possibility. I'm not saying that that's what she did, but that's what's been concluded. Those are the options. That, or she hadn't digested the milk that was in her prior to that feed. So does it come to this, that because it's an alternative to you having injected milk into child G, you are not ruling out the possibility that your friend, one of your best friends, Nurse E, overfed her? I can't say for definite that didn't happen, no. I'm not saying she did do that, but it's a possibility. Just in the 2 minutes we've got before the break, you tell us what would have had to have happened for Nurse E to have overfed child G. I don't believe that she would have, but potentially she has mismeasured the amount of millilitres when she's decanted the milk from the bottle into the feeding bottle. We know because you have told us that a syringe is a 10 ml syringe? Yes. So not only has she miscalculated the original amount, but she's also put in, or allowed to drip feed in, more than 4.5 measures of 10 ml. So it's a double mistake. That was a possibility, yes. Well, everything is possible, like Dr. Marna Reed's helicopter and the pots. But are you suggesting it's a realistic possibility? No. No. Just before the break, I was asking you questions about the possibility of your friend Nurse E having overfed child G. Yes. And you accepted that it wasn't a realistic possibility. Is that right? It's a possibility. I don't believe that happened. No. We know from the paperwork what Nurse E recorded as having fed child G, don't we? Yes. We can see it's behind divider 7 at the very final page, J7013, which you have open in front of you. Yes. To have fed child G twice as much presumably would have taken twice as long. Yes. To have fed 90, taking it twice, 90 ml at 2 o'clock. How long would that take? I can't say for definite, but it would have taken longer than the 45 ml, yes. How long does 45 ml take? Well, it's very hard to say definitively, but 15, 20 minutes maybe? And do you remember what time you recorded the desaturation as having occurred at? Yes, 2:15. Yes. So on those grounds as well, we can exclude the possibility that Nurse E overfed child G, can't we? I believe the evidence presented was that overfeeding is a possibility. All right. Who presented that evidence? Is that not what the experts have said? How would the experts know? They weren't there. Which experts said overfeeding was a possibility? Can you help us? Have Dr. Evans and Dr. Bowen not made reference to overfeeding? Do you remember saying in answer to your counsel that you remembered being with Elsa Simpson just prior to child G vomiting? Yes. That you were sitting together at the nursing station? Yes. You'd been there for a few minutes. Yes. You heard an alarm and quite a loud retching noise. Yes. And so you both went to child G in nursery 2. Yes. When you went in, you found her vomiting from the mouth and the nose. Yes. So does that mean she was still vomiting by the time you got there? Yes. You started giving her Neopuff? Yes. Stripped her off and found her abdomen to be firm and distended and red? Yes. You were both quite shocked. Is that what you said? Yes. There was vomit on the chair, at the cot side, and on the floor. Yes. And that shocked you as well. Yes. Neither of you had ever seen that before? No, not on a neonatal unit, no. And that was a clear recollection that you had last week, giving evidence? Yes. What time do you say it was that child G vomited? 2:15, approximately. Let's see what you wrote in the sequence. It's at tile 79, please. Child G had a large projectile milky vomit at 2:15. Yes. Continue to vomit ++. Yes? Yes. 45 ml milk obtained from NG tube with air ++. Yes. Abdomen noted to be distended and discoloured. Colour improved a few minutes after aspirating tube. Remained distended but soft. Registrar Ventris asked to review. To go nil by mouth with IV fluids. Doctor called to theatre. And that's a reference, isn't it, to Dr. Ventris being called away to a more pressing emergency? Yes. If child G had not digested the feed given at 2300 the previous night, Nurse E wouldn't have got an acidic reaction, would she, when she tested the nasogastric tube? Yes, she would. So you disagree with Dr. Bowen? Yes, I do. On what basis do you disagree? Because having looked after many babies over the years, we can get milk aspirates with a positive acid reaction. What, a pH of 4? Yes. It's very acidic, isn't it? Yes. Child G's stomach wouldn't have accommodated a further 45 ml of feed, would it, under gravity, if she had still been full after the feed at 2300? I think that's a medical thing. I can't comment on the size of a baby's stomach. Can we look at the photograph that Elsa Simpson produced, please? It's AS4, which is J26510. Do you agree that is accurate? Yes. I think you told us in answer to your counsel that this was something that you had never seen before. Not in a neonate, no. Do you remember what you told the police? Yes. What did you say about the spread of it to the police? That it was in the cot and down her clothing? Yes. If we just go to your interview, please. It's the first child G interview, page 6. At the bottom of that page, you describe, when you've called it a large vomit, can you describe where did it go? What colour was it? And your response, please? I said, from what I remember, it was a milky coloured vomit, but it was a large volume that was going into the bed and down child G's clothes. Why didn't you tell the truth about this? I haven't lied. It was in her cot. I just at that moment haven't specified exactly where else it went. No, but this was an extraordinary vomit, wasn't it? Yes. The like of which you had never seen in your career before. I have seen, but not on a neonate. Yes. It would have stuck in your mind, wouldn't it? Yes. So why didn't you tell the truth to the police? It's not telling the truth. It's an oversight that I haven't mentioned it during interview. Did you remember it when you were saying this to the police? I can't say that now. Where were you when you saw child G vomit? Child G was vomiting when Elsa and I went into the nursery to her. She was still vomiting. Where were you? With Elsa at the cot side of child G. You were not with Elsa, were you? Yes, I was. If we look at what you said to the police back in July 2018, so moving on from page 7 where we've just been on to page 8, almost exactly halfway down, was that the first sign to you that something was wrong with child G? Okay? Yes. And this is after you told the police on the previous page that you've gone in. You say, I think so, yes. She'd been a baby that had been backwards and forwards to different units at other times. You were then asked, and you know when you said air plus from the NG tube, how do you measure that amount of air? How did you come to that conclusion? You replied, So when I've withdrawn the 45 ml of milk, air came out with it. What determined to your mind to put plus plus on your notes? You replied, it was a large amount. I haven't measured the volume. You then repeat what you had said on the previous page about where the vomit was. Is that right? Yes. And over the page, about a third of the way down, they say, so at the point of the vomit, what exactly were you doing? And you say, I don't remember. That's right. So you didn't know where you were at the time of the vomit? Not at this point, no. But you were present at child G's cot and you say, I think I went to her because she was vomiting. I heard her vomiting. Yes. Is there any mention here of being with Elsa? No. Why not? I've just told you my action. I went into her. You weren't with Elsa, were you? Yes. Let's look at a neonatal review if we may. We see the layout that we dealt with just before the break. Got that? Yes. If we go to page 3 of 7, please. What we see at page 3 may be slightly misleading because at line 37 it says Child G event. Yes. And it's been marked in there at 2 o'clock. Yes. On your evidence and your note made at the time, it was 2:15, wasn't it? Yes. First of all, I'm going to suggest to you that you deliberately misstated the time at which Child G had this event, had this vomit. No. And that it happened much closer to 2:30. No, I don't agree. Right. We'll come to the reasons for that in a moment, because I'm suggesting that this is one of the occasions where you have misrepresented events in the nursing note. All right? Okay. Before we get there, let's look at what was going on with Elsa Simpson. What we see in this neonatal review at line 41 is that she was feeding the child AC. Yes. Is that right? At 2:20? Yes. If we go back to page 2, we see that the child AC was in nursery 1. Yes. You will remember the evidence that Elsa Simpson gave on the 2nd of December last year when she described to us the routine that she would have had to have undertaken to fetch the milk, to defrost it, to warm it, and to feed it. Yes. And if she fed this child at 2:20, she was certainly not with you at the nursing desk at the time child G collapsed, was she? I disagree. We were together at the nurse's station. Well, let's just look at it in terms of the time. Dr. Ventress note at tile 80, please. This is line 44 in the neonatal review. Call to review child G urgently at 02:35. Yes. That's when she was called, isn't it? From her documentation, I can't confirm exactly when she was called. I'd have to look at the bleep records. This is an accurate time, I'm going to suggest, for when this event actually happened. I disagree. And I'm suggesting to you that this is the evidence that shows that you have deliberately put the time of the vomit forward to 2:15. No, I disagree. And the reason you've done that, I'm going to suggest, is so that there is a more obvious link between your friend, your best friend, Nurse E, feeding the child and the vomit. No, because you wanted to create the impression that the two events were linked. No. Whereas in fact the reason child G collapsed and the reason you aspirated so much air and milk from her is that you deliberately overfed her. That's not true. And you did it by putting milk into a syringe and using the plunger to force air and milk into her. No, that's not true. Where did all that air come from? She was neopuffed. But you aspirated the air before she was neopuffed. I can't say that without looking. I can't confirm or deny that at the moment. I'd have to look at the charts. Which chart are we going to look at to find the answer to that point? So usually, as we went straight to child G and started neopuffs, that would have been, the first priority would have been her breathing rather than aspirating a tube. Well, let's look at your note, shall we? Tile 79. Can we go to the original, please? In case there's a disconnect between what we have here and what's in the original. Bottom right-hand quadrant. This is your note? Is that right? Yes. Written at 08:57 and concluded at 09:11. Yes. Was there any other information that you had written down at the time which underlied this? What do you mean? Sorry? Had you written down a different account somewhere else? Not a different account, no. Okay, so we can take it that this is an accurate account of what happened. Yes, as much as it can be accurate, yes. Subject to time, you say, written in retrospect for care given from 0 to 100. Child G had large projectile vomit at 0 to 15. Continued to vomit. 45 ml milk obtained from NG tube with air++. Abdomen noted to be distended and discoloured. Colour improved few minutes after aspirating tube. Yes. Where does it mention neopuffing? It doesn't. Why not? That's an oversight. Elsa and I both said in interview that she needed neopuffing. Neopuffing doesn't account for all this air in child G, does it? That's not for me to answer. Does milk come out of the neopuff machine? No. No. It doesn't account for all the milk either, does it? No. Because the truth of it is that you injected child G with milk and air, didn't you? No. Can we go to page 20 of your police interview, please? This is the second of the child G interviews. This is the interview on the 11th of June 2019. You were asked all these questions by the police, weren't you? Yes. We'll start halfway down the page. Did you administer air to child G at this time, causing her to collapse? Do you see that? Yes. Your answer was no. You were then asked a question. In your previous interview, Lucy, you said you obtained a larger volume of air from the NG tube than just the general amount you would usually obtain. You replied, yeah, I'm not sure. At what point did I aspirate the tube and find the air? Was it when she vomited? So this is what I've just been asking you about. Yes. The police then say, yeah, you said after a vomit you took over her care as the designated nurse and you obtained a larger volume of air from the NG tube than just the general amount you obtained. You replied, yes. You were then asked, would you agree that she must have received a bolus of air from the feeding syringe? And what was your response? Well, air has got there somehow, yes. And that's the truth of it, isn't it? No, it's been suggested to me that it could have gone through the feeding syringe, and I've said potentially. And how would it potentially get through the feeding syringe? If it's been put down there. How would you do that? Pushing it down. With what? The plunger. Yes, that's what you were thinking, weren't you? No. And that's why you gave that answer. No, that's how it was put to me. Where do they say with a plunger? They don't, but they've suggested that the air came from the NG tube to me. About 45 minutes later, at 03:15, do you remember Dr. Ventress telling us that she was called out of theatre because child G had collapsed again? Yes. And this was when you were her designated nurse, wasn't it? Yes. Do you remember what Dr. Ventress saw in child G's mouth when she tried to intubate her? Not from my memory, no. Well, I will remind you. Blood-stained fluid coming up from the trachea between the vocal cords. Okay. So echoes of child C and child E. Would you agree with that? I don't recall him specifically saying it came up through the cords on child E, but it was coming up from somewhere down there, wasn't it? Yes. Yes. When you had been alone with child G. I'm not saying that I've been alone with child G. And you had inserted something into child G's airway, hadn't you? No. And you caused the bleeding as you did with many other of these children. No, that's not true. Do you remember later child G desaturated on the ventilator at 5:30 and again at 6 o'clock? Yes, I do. Yes. And 100 ml of either air or milk was aspirated. Do you remember that? 100 ml. 100 ml. Can I see where that's documented, please? Yes. It was the evidence given by Dr. Ventress. Dr. Ventress said air. Dr. Breary said milk. Is it on the charts, though? It's the evidence that was given. But is it documented? No. I'm telling you what the evidence is. Do you agree with it or not? I don't recall 100 mil coming out. No. You put that there, didn't you? 100 mil? Yes. No. Well, how much did you put there? I didn't put any air down. As soon as you went off shift, do you remember who took over Child G? Nurse A. Yes. Do you remember what problems Nurse A had with Child G after you had disappeared? No. Can we just go back to tile 118, please? This is Dr. Ventress' note. I've found the documentation you've asked me for. We'll just go to Dr. Ventress' handwriting in a second just to check that it is a true reflection of what she has written. But do you see ETT removed at 0610, fixed secretions ++? Yes. Blood clot at end of ETT? Yes. Then the last two lines. NG aspirated as abdo appeared very large, about 100 mil aspirated. Yes. So that's documented. No, I agree it's documented, I just don't recall that volume. Do you accept it? I accept it if that's what they've written there, yes. Yes. How did that get there? I don't know how the air got there. It's after neo-puffing. Let's go back to the point I was making before I managed to locate that note. It's tile 320, please. Can we go to the original note? So this is your friend Nurse A's note, isn't it? Yes. No suggestion there that there was any build-up of either fluid or air in Child G, is there? Not that I can see there, no. No. Do you remember what you were doing that night when you were not in work? I went back into work to sign for some documentation for Child G. You went to visit Child G, didn't you? I didn't visit Child G, no. I went to do what I needed to do with documentation. Were you looking for an opportunity to finish her off? No.